Hello, welcome to our broadcast today. I am Conrad Leiva, Director of Ecosystem and Workforce Development at CESMII. Today's presentation is one in a series for CESMII's virtual annual member meeting. If you have missed one of these great presentations, please, I encourage you to check them out at CESMII.org. Take a moment to read our antitrust statement. Thank you. Mike Yost is going to help me today and handle the Q&A part of this broadcast. Hi, Mike.
Hello, Conrad.
Hey, Mike, do you remember this slide and quote from last year?
I do. And I just wanted to take a minute and acknowledge the fact that last year it was me on the stage giving this presentation. This is one of the slides that I used to talk about how important education workforce development is. I was preparing to give this talk at the face-to-face meeting in early March. And one of the things that I was going to talk about as an accomplishment for the Institute is the hiring of Conrad in the role that he's in. So just really excited. Hope everybody takes away the fact that we are strengthening as a team, that the focus and skill sets that we have internally now are stronger. Conrad, as you'll see here over the next 45 minutes or so, has a good grasp of what we've done, where we came from, what we're working on, and is putting his fingerprints all over it. So as Conrad said, I will be back at the end to guide through the question and answer session. So would encourage anybody that has any questions to use the Q&A panel that's in the Zoom webinar. Don't use the chat feature. Put everything in the Q&A and we will get to those questions. I will be back at that time to help with that session.
Thank you, Mike. As Mike pointed out, I recently joined the team with a mission to accelerate manufacturing innovation through a knowledge-building ecosystem. So today I will talk about that strategy, but I also want to talk about all the things we've been working on besides growing the team. We have been getting more specific about our strategy and plans. They keep evolving, but you should see a lot more clarity today. We have been completing projects. We continue to expand our network and ecosystem, and we're increasing our engagement with membership through communities and committees. Before I get started with strategy, I want to acknowledge the current climate and the importance of this topic. We knew that smart manufacturing was important before the pandemic, but it's even more important now. In fact, McKinsey says it's already a cliche that COVID-19 is accelerating the shift to digital in manufacturing. McKinsey also pointed out that their surveys have identified a lack of knowledgeable resources as a top roadblock to achieving that Industry 4 vision and promised value. So we might not be sure about the exact timing, but we know we had a gap of unfilled positions in manufacturing before the pandemic, and we will still have a gap when we come out of this. A gap between the need of manufacturers and the available talent pool. In addition to the lack of new talent, our existing workers are not upskilling. They're not keeping up with new technologies and methods. Our new equipment might look like the cockpit of the Dragon spaceship, but how many in the workforce know how to use this new equipment? How many know how to get data out of it? How many are still using paper and spreadsheets to manage operations? Never mind disconnected silos of information in the plant and supply chain. What we need is a smart manufacturing workforce that helps us bridge across that OT and IT divide. It's breaking up the silos, because this is not just about technology training. This is about redefining work for new value. Value found in automating the routine and making the rest semi-autonomous, giving us warnings and suggestions. It's about helping us do the job without getting in the way, which can be tricky. I mean, just ask my wife. But augmented workers, data-empowered managers, citizen technologists, data scientists, they are all going to help manufacturers elevate their game to meet the challenges of this new marketplace. But we do have some challenges for upskilling the existing workforce and educating the new workforce. SMIC can help with some of these problems. We can help provide clarity on definitions, methods, and required skills. We can help fund hands-on labs. We can help bring people together across disciplines, academia and vendors, and most importantly, bring together manufacturers and learners through more on-the-job learning programs. What is SESMII's strategy to help free the ecosystem of some of these challenges? Well, you heard our CEO, John Dyke, speak about the strategy in his keynote. He talked about how SESMII is helping democratize smart manufacturing through 4 main strategies. The first of our strategy, you heard our CTO, Haresh, speak in his keynote about the enabling technology and innovation platform. But that journey is not just about technology. We need skilled people to operate, sustain, and scale these solutions in the enterprise. And it's not a journey that we just do inside our plants. It's a journey for the whole ecosystem. It's a transformation of how our value chains connect and do business together. Education and workforce development is one of those key strategies that are going to help us deliver that required talent pool and help us achieve broad scale adoption in smart manufacturing. We need to provide education that might start as e-learning for some of the simpler concepts, but quickly moves on to instructor-led and hands-on experience for more advanced topics. We also need more on-the-job learning experience. You know, how come some careers like medical doctors, internships are part of the process of the career path to a hospital, but in manufacturing, we don't have anything like that. Yet manufacturers want to hire people that have experience already into jobs. Well, where are they supposed to get that experience? We need to get more innovative about on-the-job learning programs. And the 4th strategy is a national presence. And our Chief of Operations, Howard, spoke in his keynote about how SESMII keeps expanding its national network of resources, including innovation centers and learning centers equipped with manufacturing assets and smart manufacturing training programs. An example of that is the North Carolina State Innovation Center, which has real manufacturing assets in different industry sectors that are actually used by industry. Learning centers that provide hands-on learning, adding skills on top of that for machine learning, data modeling, and access to the Smart Manufacturing Innovation Platform. These centers allow us to make some of these assets available to the entire network, thanks to efforts to create digital twin capabilities in some of those institutes. Now, let's talk about what we mean by smart manufacturing education. We keep evolving the framework that explains the smart manufacturing content that is needed. This framework explains areas of interest, but also helps us identify progress towards filling the gaps. The framework starts at the top with how we frame smart manufacturing for business strategy, then moves on to cultural and technological transformation topics. Then keeps drilling down into the how we do orchestration, automation, and connectivity, how we do secured infrastructure, platform, and technologies. In general, it covers the why, the what, and the how of smart manufacturing. We can keep drilling down on those 4 layers. We want to cover the whole spectrum, providing clarity and guidance on connecting the industrial production resources and processes into the enterprise business processes and systems. We want education that is also targeting all those audiences, from business leaders and innovation champions to operations, IT, system integrators, and ecosystem partners. There's a lot to talk about here. So we are going to schedule a session on the EWD framework in a few weeks to spend more time on this topic. I do want to emphasize that SESMII is going to focus more on these middle layers, because we have on the top consultants that are creating education for business leaders on strategy, and on the bottom we have vendors that are creating education on technology. However, there is a lot of guidance needed for how to thread all that technology together to create real business solutions for manufacturers. And we're going to focus here in that middle area. To cover all these areas and audiences, we need different types of educational resources. So on the business side, for larger companies, we're going to need transformational services. For smaller companies, we might need content that we can deliver in group workshops or more self-serve readiness and value assessment tools. To tackle the middle layers, we will need e-learning, workshops, and projects that develop curriculum and hands-on programs. We are also producing content on the landscape, fundamentals, and on the bottom here on technology and platform. But not all content is going to be SESMII produced. So we will be introducing a SESMII recognized program where we can recognize educational content and programs from partners that are willing to embrace the SESMII smart manufacturing principles and benchmarking practices. We will have more details on what that means, but in general, we're not going to cover everything in our education program, but what we do want to make sure is clear is what are the principles and those imperatives that if everybody follows, and we have a good overlap on these guidelines, that we are all heading on the same smart manufacturing journey. We will all arrive with solutions that will integrate together seamlessly. That's the general idea. And next month, we expect to update the education services catalog and provide more clarity on foundational education that we're going to provide on the platform and those smart manufacturing principles and imperatives. Education that we expect every member to go through to properly use the innovation platform and the technology. Then we will also have extended education that will be available to members and non-members on all kinds of smart manufacturing topics that might go beyond the platform. And we want to cover transformational services because we don't think that education alone is what's needed. We do believe that some companies are going to need or want some services to help them along. We're going to talk a little bit more about that in another slide. So now let's talk about all the things that we've been executing on. I want to start with our knowledge sharing community. The knowledge sharing community, I think, is one of the greatest values of being part of the CESMII ecosystem. I mean, we're learning from peers with shared visions and missions. And that's, I think, the best way to accelerate our efforts. We have recently highlighted some of our ecosystem partners that are being very creative in their response to COVID-19. And I encourage you to seek out those interviews, like NC State, or our discussion with Jim Wetzel of NextGen on how companies are handling the resulting disruption. But we actually have over 25 of these episodes recorded that we're looking to how to best organize so you can find it when you need it. We are also completing projects that develop educational resources. Our RFP2 Wave 2 is an education and workforce development wave, and we have 4 proposals selected for negotiation. Those will be announced early next week. So expect to hear soon about those. I'm very excited about the projects in the pipeline. But we have 2 projects that are in process now and near completion and are from our RFP 1 wave. We have a workforce development model project led by our California team, and they came up with some core competencies analysis here for smart manufacturing for 4 personas in manufacturing, from the operator, the technician, to the engineer, to the manager. They also perform a national inventory of smart manufacturing education programs. And those are programs that we will approach and see how we can make them part of the CESMII ecosystem. We also have a Factory 4.0 educational toolkit from Penn State and MIT. This is around this fiber extrusion device. And as you can see on the left, the device is going to be available, and a bill of material and instructions how to make it's going to be available. And courseware and videos and the software that goes with that is going to be made available. But wait, we've done a lot more than that, have we? Indeed. Let me see. Well, back in October, Mike led a few workshops on framing smart manufacturing. That happened during Manufacturing National Day, a month, and in 4 regions. So we want to keep performing those type of workshops, and we're targeting September for another wave of instructor-led workshops and demonstrations. We have also been conducting training webcasts and recording them. We have one in machine learning. There's 2 coming up next week on the platform on information modeling and workflow. And we completed a pilot on our transformational services. Let's talk about that. So the mission of that pilot was to provide value-added services to accelerate adoption of manufacturers by helping them with their internal why and what analysis of smart manufacturing. We asked Jim Wetzel and the Next Gen group to do 4 things, to do discovery interviews and figure out what were unmet needs in the membership, to create a menu of potential service offerings, and to take a couple of the services and execute them in a pilot and report back on those things. I'm giving you a little bit of a sneak peek here of what was learned during that pilot, but I really think that the best way to give you that information is directly by the Next Gen group, and General Mills has agreed to speak with them on July 9th. So please don't miss that session. We will be emailing out that in our newsletter also, invitation to that session. So that's going to be very interesting, and it's going to go a lot more in depth than the points illustrated here. So we've been discussing the things we've been working on, and we've been hinting at some of the things ahead. So let's talk about our roadmap priorities. We want to establish a SESMII recognized program based on some smart manufacturing principles, imperatives, and benchmarking. We want to establish some repositories, a learning management system to provide this education that we're producing to members, and also an education sharing repository to make resources available to our educator ecosystem. We want to expand the catalog, filling the gaps in the smart manufacturing EWD framework. We're going to do that through the project waves, completing the projects that are in the queue and planning the next wave. We're also going to do it top down and bottom up with internal team members and partners. And we will go top down, led by the business leaders and who identify the needs they have in the education arena, and bottom up with the technical team and our technology partners, right? Helping us explain how we thread these technologies together to accomplish the smart manufacturing vision through smart manufacturing solutions. Helping manufacturers with immediate problems and helping them increase their productivity. To do this, we need the whole ecosystem engaged. We are also going to be doing transformational education and services. So expect that catalog revision in July. We want to expand the upskilling engine that we talked about before. So we want more e-learning, more hands-on, more on the job, more regions, more industries. We just have to keep increasing that at national scale. So we're just getting started there. And we want to engage with members and community. So we will restart the EWD Outreach Committee, but we want to do it, engage in agile development cycles with the committee. So expect us to reach out to you, but please reach out to me too. We're going to have more educational workshops at our regional centers. And we're going to continue building the knowledge sharing community, because what we've done is just get it started on on YouTube, on LinkedIn, but we really want more of an online community where we can help people network. Let's suppose we didn't have our annual meeting this year. That would have been a place where a lot of people would have networked together. We're kind of envisioning, how do we do that kind of networking online, in an online community where people can have discussions on specific topics, but then could actually start a conversation on the side to initiate a project and see if we can, if we can meet the right partners to get a project started. So that's the kind of thing that we want to get going here. So my main takeaway for today for you is that we want you to engage with SESMII, okay? We want you to engage on community. You know, join the SESMII LinkedIn Smart Manufacturing community. Check out our web series and download resources. There's the resource link here for our website. There's a resource page. The web series has its own page also on the website. We have upcoming online events. The one I just mentioned for July 9th, it's really a continuation of this presentation. So make sure not to miss the presentation by NextGen and General Mills. There's foundational education opportunities that are coming up. Events are also on the calendar. Make sure they're on your calendar. We're going to have future project waves. No need to wait for the call. If you want to start kicking around ideas for projects, please reach out to me. Let's start kicking around those ideas. So when we put an RFP out, we have more mature ideas of what we're looking for. Educational workshop at the regions in September. If you know, if the situation allows, we would love to start engaging face-to-face again with instructor-led sessions. And the outreach committee, our next meeting, I'm trying to schedule it for July 16th. Please, if you're not in the committee, we want you to reach out to us, because we basically have a business practices committee, an enabling technology committee, innovation platform committee, and the ecosystem and workforce development committee, right? So we're looking for people. If you have a passion about smart manufacturing and a passion about education, we want you on our team. If you know someone else in your team that has a passion about education, we want that person also on the team. So help us refine the framework, prioritize the catalog for execution, because working together is how we're going to accelerate our efforts. I want to close my session today with this quote from our CTO. At the time when COVID-19 has brought upon us a new reality of social distancing and remote work, might there be an opportunity for us to invest in strengthening and rebuilding our talent, for us to be ready so when we emerge on the other side of this, we'll do it stronger? I strongly believe there is. Well, Haresh, I butchered your quote, but you get the idea. Yes, we do have an opportunity in front of us, an opportunity to work together and accelerate innovation in our manufacturing innovation. I want you to engage with us, and it's time. I covered a lot of things here today, a lot of ground. We're going to have more sessions on education. This is almost really a teaser presentation. I focused on letting you know all the progress we've made today and on the general framework that we're putting together, but we will have more drill down sessions on these topics. However, perhaps we can answer some questions today.
Well, thank you, Conrad. Mike back here again to help with the question and answer session. As Conrad mentioned, lots of ground was covered there. with plenty more to come. So please enter any questions that you have in the Q&A panel, and I will throw them to Conrad, and we'll discuss it here. So I guess a couple things. First of all, Conrad, right off the top, you said we could ask your wife her opinion on some things, so I did that. But we're going to save her questions to the end. So the first question that we have here refers back to the section where you were highlighting smart manufacturing imperatives. Principles or imperatives, I believe they were named on the slide. So the question is specifically around the sustainability imperative and asking whether that would include risk assessment and business continuity as well. So I don't know if you want to dive into the depth of that. I know we still have work to do on that whole framework, but what's your take on that?
So the important thing was that there was draft on that slide. So we're still shaping those. One thing is that topic, reach out to me very specifically. I love those thoughts you're having there. We definitely want concepts that go not only within the plant and the connectivity, and ensure that we're doing it in an open and that we're open way, that we're creating data-driven processes, that we're really setting up to optimize, to orchestrate the whole ecosystem among business, process, and technology, right? So, and that we want to do it not just within the plant, but into the whole ecosystem, into the whole value chain. So we want all of those concepts to be in some imperatives and some principles, but we're also hoping to be able to keep them simple, straightforward, easy to follow, right? Yeah. So Lean kept it to 7 ways, to maybe 8, but so maybe we can keep it around there.
Right. Yeah. And I think to your point, Conrad, right, that we're working on that. And I think that the notion that SMIC will be the place that owns the definition of certain things, right? There are so many definitions that are out there today, so many ways to look at things. And as we define the imperatives from an institute's perspective as an ecosystem here, helps define clarity. And I think it will certainly touch on business continuity and risk and things like that. Absolutely play into that. But what are the pieces, parts that fit specifically in our domain that SMIC can own? So let's move on to another one. First, there's a comment. This is more of a comment than a question. I want to express our excitement as a university/engineering center and our commitment to SESMII. So appreciate that very much. Appreciate the commitment.
Right.
Spot on with Conrad's point of.
Let's get you on the committee. We would love to have you there. Yeah.
That's right. So another question here talks about I think it's the transformational services. So maybe 2 points here. One, asking specifically if you can expand upon the assessment tools, smart manufacturing assessment tools, and the resources. If you can define what those will entail, I think it may make sense to also talk about sort of that whole transformational services bucket as well.
Well, we realized that, I mean, just throwing education over the fence, here, go look it up, sometimes doesn't work for everybody. People might need a little guidance, and guidance could be as little as helping you work through all the resources that are available and helping you translate a generic model or paper into the language for your own industry. So maybe concepts have been generalized so much they need to be made industry specific with certain experts. Or maybe you need an exercise with your management team to really get them on board. They're not going to read it. They really need to get in a meeting and kick it around, and that's what these services are about. What exactly what NextGen did specifically, they're going to talk about. And that was targeted to larger companies, but we also are brainstorming to see how we can take that type of exercise and scale it maybe to a little bit smaller company, to medium-sized companies. Is there a way we can exercise that kind of road mapping exercise as a group and facilitate it to a broader audience? So that cost is reduced for many smaller manufacturers? And can we get some of these things all the way to self-serve assessment tools for smaller manufacturers? We need to think through how we do this, and maybe we start with training more people that can execute those services, but we want to do things at scale. By the way, I think we might want to rename that EWD Outreach Committee to the EWD at Scale Committee. So I really want scale to be part of the conversation when it comes to the ecosystem and workforce development.
Yeah, and I think too, Conrad, if I could just piggyback on what you're saying. I mean, obviously there need to be services, methodologies, tools that people have to understand fit and value and approach. And pretty much anybody that's deploying a smart type system is, either using somebody's or creating their own to have that justification. And so from our perspective, again, it comes back to the point of providing something that's scalable, that people can grab onto, that we can educate a large number of people around, that we can benchmark against, and we can provide, guidance for the overwhelming vast majority of manufacturers who don't have that kind of a structure. So how quickly we can put that in place and scale that, I think is the trick. And to Conrad's point, the fact that we've started in pilot phase, we're really excited about where that can go as next steps. But the specifics of those things will bear out more in the July session on where that's going.
Yeah.
So another question came in here. It says, will the formation and launch of new satellites, referring I think to the SMIC satellites that Howard talked about, will the formation and launch of these new satellites serve as a means to deploy CESMII's EWD resources?
Yes. So part of the mission of an innovation center is education, and at an innovation center, the bar maybe is set even higher. We might actually have some that are just learning centers too. And I don't know if that would still fall under the innovation center bar, or if we would have another category of learning center that we could even scale more broadly. But we definitely, but the innovation centers, the examples we have so far are academic centers that are also working on smart manufacturing education.
Yeah, I think that's a great question and a great answer too, Conrad. It's absolutely part of our network strategy, right, which is being central to CESMII's existence and is being borne out, realized by having these satellites and getting away from being, tied to a specific region, but being able to meet industry needs or having, specific topic areas or areas of expertise within those centers. But it's absolutely going to be a part of the structure that allows us to scale and engage the ecosystem.
And different regions have different assets because sometimes different industry focus in different regions too. So I think that being able to network across institutes and assets and being able to share digital versions of those assets across the ecosystem, it's going to be a value added to all the education institutes in the network.
Excellent. Well, I would encourage everybody, if you have any questions, to get them in now. We're getting low on questions here, and I promised Conrad that when we run out of questions, we will pull a plug on the event. So go ahead and get your questions in if you still have any. There is one here, Conrad, that I'll read straight up on, and might need a little clarification on the language, but it says, what is the timeline for the second wave of EWD proposals, and what will these focus on? And the language, I believe what they're talking about is a future round, so the next round to come, although technically we've already had 2 rounds of project proposals specific to EWD.
Well, it's going to be in that framework. We're going to use the framework to help us identify and prioritize. So the framework will help us map out. These are all the areas that we could work on. We'll put that in front of membership. We have some ideas of logical priorities, but we want to validate that with the team. That's part of what we want membership engaged with. How do we do more of filling in that framework? What type of education programs and assets and hands-on tools? So it's a combination of the functional topics in the framework with that upskilling engine dimensions of creating e-learning, hands-on, on the job. So when you put that into a matrix, where are the biggest gaps? Where are the biggest pains for industry? Let's go after those first. So that will help us prioritize the next way.
I just noticed, Conrad, that you talk with your hands as much as I do, and I never noticed that about you before. Excuse me. I think just to piggyback on that and to stick with that, we don't know specifically yet what the next wave of or the areas of interest will be for the next wave. I can say that we launched the RFP2 Wave 2 project at the end of last year, and as Conrad mentioned in the presentation, we're working through that and are now down to the point where we're about ready to announce the company selected to move forward with that. And I think 2 things that I would touch on there and ask you to comment on as well, Conrad, is one, I think we're very impressed with the proposals that were put together and the responses that were out there, and the work that people are doing. So the commitment to education around smart manufacturing. This isn't something people are thinking about future steps. These are, there are initiatives underway from an industry perspective. There are industry partners that are actively currently working. There are academic partners that similarly are focused and maturing things at the graduate level, at an undergraduate level, even pre-college level. So I think what we're seeing is there's a lot of good work that's happening and moving forward. There's a lot of interest, and that's powerful. And I think, so if you want to comment on that, Conrad, and then the other thing that I think might be worth touching on is the fact that in the framework that you laid out, you talked about the core, 4 levels. There's a core piece that there's some stuff hanging over the edges above and below, right? So there's sort of core technology pieces, parts that we're not going to focus on, and there are higher level services and things like that. But we're going to be focused where that framework is focused, which is right in our wheelhouse.
Yeah, that's correct. Was there a question in there?
Well, I ran right over my question. I'm sorry. I was just going to ask if you wanted to comment at all about the responses that we received, right?
Yeah, I mean, the point you were making that manufacturers are, educators, manufacturers, they're all interested in getting smart manufacturing education on the table. They're engaged. Manufacturers must be making enough noise that educators have taken notice. There's a lot of programs moving forward, and we're just very encouraged by that, because 5 years ago, that conversation was not the same. It's like, what is smart manufacturing? So now we really have the academics figuring out. We had such an incredible conversation yesterday with Dr. Raghu at Purdue, which we'll be putting online pretty soon. But If you missed it, it was exactly about how we need new education that crosses the disciplines, that provides, that equips. And a great example was, I could be a manufacturing engineer, but maybe I also become a citizen data scientist, so that everybody needs to wear more hats, and the citizen technologist, the citizen data science says, I mean, we need a whole generation of these that can take the hobbyist that's working with Raspberry Pi and connecting things, maybe doing a little shadow IT. We need to turn those resources into formal smart manufacturing professionals that have the right tools to do it right, so that IT doesn't need to be pulling their hairs when they connect things into the system.
Right, and we need to provide framework and structure by which they can do it safely, securely, sustainably, et cetera, which comes back to the imperatives.
To all the guidelines that we're putting together.
Yep, exactly. And that your point there, you went right where I was hoping you would go, and ties right into another question that I want to bring up as you talked about the citizens technologists, the younger generation. As we talked yesterday in our conversation with Raghu, as you mentioned, we talked about the work to draw in and give engineering students in that case, the excitement to come and be in, working in manufacturing, or get people into engineering and into manufacturing, and the work to do to attract the younger generation. So I think that ties in with the citizen technologist, and it ties right in with this next question, which says, have you ever tried to describe the work of SESMII more simply and tell a wider audience so that a younger audience and different audiences can understand the work and be inspired to consider education and or training that are consistent with the work of smart manufacturing and smart enterprises, energy management, feeding the supply chain of younger workers, et cetera. So you want to talk a little bit about that? Kind of, you started to touch on that with the citizen technology.
We have recently produced out of SESMII some videos, some introductory videos. One is animated. The demo video that Jonathan put together and shows his son at the end wiring the refrigerator to the smart manufacturing platform. These are so cool. These are so cool videos that I'm not sure people even think that this is manufacturing. So I think the problem is bridging the skeptic, right? I mean, we're excited about it, and we just see super cool technology. Hope maybe the new space program, gets people interested in technology again and manufacturing again. We're open to ideas. We definitely want to participate in Manufacturing Day. I think it's been a great tool. We need to keep messaging out that manufacturing is not what it used to be. It's high tech and good paying jobs that require higher skills, and it's a great future.
Well, and to me, Conrad, to piggyback on what you're talking about, right, that's part of what excites me about SESMII, and part of the reason that I came here to be part of this is the fact that there are technology components to what you're talking about, and there are non-technology components, right? So, manufacturers by their nature are problem solvers. Probably everybody that's watching this video or part of this session today are problem solvers. And what we're talking about being able to do, if we provide the right tools, we provide the right technologies, we provide the right processes and structure by which to, say, as an example, create smart manufacturing profiles so that you can model what's happening from a data perspective in the assets. How that starts to unlock possibilities for the problems that can be solved tomorrow is mind-blowing, right? And so as we look at future generations, do you want to solve problems? Do you want to solve little problems? Do you want to solve big problems? In manufacturing, you now, because of the age that we are in, have the opportunity to solve big problems. And one of the things I've always struggled with a bit in the way some of these solutions have been positioned is we don't need new technologies to solve yesterday's problems, right? I mean, we need new technologies that are going to allow us to solve problems that we don't even know exist yet.
Yeah.
And to me, that's what gets exciting, and we can make, hopefully we can make obvious to younger generations of problem solvers that, you know, the sky's the limit here with what you can do as we start to unlock, you know,
that was one of the things that hit me when we talked with NC State about what they were doing in response to COVID, and how, thanks to the technology they had in place, they were able to retool, repurpose their assets faster, and the software needed to control and adjust and those processes, that was all faster thanks to the digital technologies today.
I agree.
Yeah. There's a question out there. When I was talking e-learning, so there's going to be a lot of more on-demand learning. So when I used the word workshops today, I meant, yeah, we're going to run those in person, instructor-led, but we want more e-learning because, well, you know, in the last few months, we've learned that there is definitely a role for e-learning. Now, e-learning, there might be something where we start with a raw video, but we want to get it to a point where we know that people are actually completing the course, that they are quizzed a little bit. So we're going to turn those into a more e-learning experience, and that's part of what we want to provide through our learning management system.
All right, well, we're just a few minutes left here and almost out of questions. There was the question of what was your wife's question.
I'm sure my wife said I was very helpful all the time.
It had something to do with your barbershop finally opening.
Yeah, that my version of artificial intelligence was never got in her way, and was always very helpful, very predictive, and very prescriptive.
Very prescriptive. Yes, very
in a helpful way. Yeah, I'm sure that's what she said.
All right, so hold on, there's one that just came in. Let me take a look at that real quick. So it says, if e-learning certificates are available around the clock, it might make sense to reach out to returning veterans to help them achieve movement toward applying their skills for smart manufacturing.
Yeah, and we've heard about some veteran reskilling programs that we want to support. So please reach out to us. We want to be part of those efforts and add smart manufacturing to that toolkit for those veterans, definitely.
Yeah, and as part of the charter for CESMII is to look for underrepresented groups and look for areas where we can make an impact, and that's spot on. And one of the things that we've talked about for some time as we look at the skills required to identify and justify and deploy and support these types of solutions is that there's a whole group there, a whole skill set that, you know, today we would broadly categorize under the banner of being systems integrators. And that there aren't enough systems integrators out there today. And so I think there's a huge opportunity for us to help develop the next generation of systems integrators. This could be internal folks, they could be external folks. And I think that there's absolutely a place for a whole new swath of folks. And I think, you know,
yeah. If you're a system integrator and you were thinking of retiring, forget it. We need you. we actually need to upskill you and put you out and deploy you to a lot of our team, our projects that we're working on. We need to upskill you to the platform type of techniques, to be able to create profiles. So please reach out. That is definitely a target for our education and one of those roles that we want to upskill.
Absolutely. Another question rolled in here said, can we talk about small to medium-sized manufacturers? Can they get engaged with our efforts here at CESMII?
Yeah, well, definitely. So it might have not been our starting point, small and medium-sized manufacturers, but it's definitely a target. of the current wave of innovation projects, but again, just technology alone is not going to do it. If we create it is our goal to have these starter kits where we can get manufacturers started on smart manufacturing and using these kind of tools a lot quicker with quick wins and very specific scopes on the technology side, but you're going to need to upskill then a few roles in your company, your business leaders, your innovation champions, your system integrators, or your citizen technologists, or whoever's going to sustain and maintain and scale those solutions within your organization. And then also your augmented workforce, that should be a smaller piece of education, but we want to help with all those areas for small, medium manufacturers.
Yeah, one thing that I'll add to that, and then I guess we'll go to a final question here, is at the live annual meeting that was scheduled early March, we had planned a kickoff of our small to medium-sized manufacturers affinity group. I just had conversations this week about how we do that again in this environment, launch virtually, however, so we're working on the plans of how we will engage that way. I can tell you that we had over 50 companies that identified themselves as small to medium-sized manufacturers that were registered to be in LA with us at the beginning of March as part of our annual meeting face-to-face. So it's part of our charter, it's part of our mandate, it's part of what we're passionate about. We absolutely believe that we can drive value to the small to medium-sized manufacturers. They make up the vast majority of manufacturers in the country, and they make up the supply chains of the larger organizations as well. So absolutely, we encourage you to reach out and get involved, to either of us, or contact headquarters, and we can definitely talk about ways and places to get small to medium-sized.
Yeah, and until we haven't reached that group, we haven't democratized. So really, it is our mission. Now, the larger companies might be helping us get started, and a lot of them have interest in their whole supply chain becoming smart. So the larger companies, member companies, are also interested in the smaller, medium companies in their supply chain, and that's part of the ecosystem equation.
Yep. Why don't we take just one last point here, and I think we'll be clear of all the questions that are in here. So Conrad, it just says, wouldn't it make sense to connect to available e-learning from other interrelated consortia such as MXD, which is a sister institute to CESMII, talking digital threads, cybersecurity, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, well, that's why, the CESMII recognized program, it's about that. We don't want to duplicate. If there's a good piece of education that makes sense under the smart manufacturing umbrella, we're going to recognize it and point people there. That is definitely part of that. That's how we're going to scale. We're not going to produce everything. We're going to produce what makes sense and fill the gaps. And then, but if we find other things we can map to the framework, oh, that's already taken care of over there. We're going to look to recognize it, have those talks, and how we make it available to the network more seamlessly. Definitely.
Yep.
As part of it. And if you have specific programs like that you want to let me know about, my email is there. Let me make sure. Is it there? Yep. My email is there.
Somewhere. Yes.
And get over to me, or get it to Mike. Anybody at CESMII will get it to me.
Yep. And I think just one point I would add with that, as you have all these interrelated initiatives and such, is the ability for us to work and make sure that we're providing clarity, right? So there's a digital institute, there's a smart institute, there's a cyber institute, right? So there's enough overlap there that it can be confusing for people, and I think it makes a ton of sense for us to collaborate.
One of the side, we're running out of time, but yeah, but also we're very interested in cross-institute collaboration, and there's education that is needed that for example, touches robots and smart manufacturing. So maybe we need a project to work together to,
Yep.
to cross some of those old silos. We don't want the silos, right? So.
That's right. That's right. Well, we're done with our questions, Conrad, so I'll give it to you to close us out.
Well, thanks again. Remember that final quote: during these times, we can do a lot, we can achieve a lot. Education is part of the equation, and engage with us. Let's make it happen.